Abby, we've got to talk about something less pleasant, and that is a game that you were at last night. Pitt losing to Hofstra, I believe 80-73, the final score. Look, we talked about it after Quinnipiac. These are quality mid-major teams. Like, these are teams that will compete for the top of their leagues, but they are teams that should not be in the same stratosphere as the University of Pittsburgh in men's basketball. To lose to them is embarrassing, first of all, and it's not going to inspire any confidence. It's going to kill enthusiasm among the fan base. It's going to hurt confidence among your players, and it just doesn't. And the picture painted of Jeff Capel's tenure at Pitt and just the state of the program right now is not a positive one, and it's really hard to continue to sell people on, look, we've got all this talent coming in next year if this is the team that they are going to be walking into.
Yeah, I covered 4 games at the Peterson Event Center last week, and that was the worst attended one, which isn't, a surprising a Sunday evening. I'm sure some fans knew that Hofstra was a little bit better than Quinnipiac. They've already lost to Quinnipiac. It's just not exciting to go and watch, especially when, there's not a deep bench. No one's exactly jumping off the page because even your what are supposed to be your star players are, as we talked about after the Texas A&M game, sometimes hesitating, sometimes not looking like that player that commands the court. There's no one on, like, at least last season, you were rooting for Jalen Lowe, which fans are going to be mad that I mentioned his name, but you had someone to root for, and I think you have that in Brandin Cummings a little bit, but like, other than that, there's just not exactly a lot to be excited about when it comes to this team. And I kind of saw it early. I mean, they dug themselves into they stayed close to start, and then they let, Hofstra take advantage of it. And in the second half, Jeff Capel has to call a quick timeout. They fight back, but then they let out steam again, and it's a recurring pattern that we're seeing of not enough guys doing enough things, getting tired at the end. I don't think necessarily the issue is offensively that much, just because you've seen these guys, almost everyone on the team at this point that has played, have a double figure game. I mean, Brandin Cummings 34 points last night, very impressive. It's the defensive end. I mean, I'm sorry, Cruz Davis is a very talented mid-major player. No player should be dropping 36 points on Pitt unless it's like, one of the best players in the ACC. And that's exactly what happened. They had no response for him. And then they just feel so discombobulated on the defensive end. And this is a team that at the beginning of the season, was very vocal about, we want to hang our hat on the defensive end. And they can't really hang their hat on anything, which is unfortunate, because I think you see the individual talent of these guys. You think, you see the vision, like, this should in theory be a better team, but they just keep having the same issues show up over and over and over again. And even Jeff Capel said, I'm not doing a good job. And honestly, I'm glad that he admitted it, because I think a lot of these issues do stem from coaching. Yeah, some of it is the players themselves, but I'm sorry, when you're allowing 3 straight halves of 50% shooting or more, something that you're doing in the practice gym isn't connecting with these guys. And I don't know how you fix that. I genuinely don't know how you fix that, because you would think that they've had these embarrassing losses. You think it would be a motivating factor, and it just, like, sometimes doesn't feel like it is.
Yeah, and even if it is the players, like, someone recruited that roster, and I understand that Jeff Capel is not working with the same resources that a lot of other schools are, that a lot of other head coaches are. But look, like, if at the end of the day, the results are the results, and there's only, look, like, this team still has chances to grow and has chances to get better. And I've said since the jump, like, I am kind of operating under, I figured this team would not be particularly good. I didn't think they would win a lot of games, probably not as many, definitely not as many as they did last year. And even with how cruddy the season ended last year, they still had, I think, 18 wins. Like, they finished above 500. I think that's completely out the door now. And so it is much harder to approach this season with any kind of positive feeling about, okay, here's a guy who is eligible to return next year and could contribute to a much better team next year. It is just hard to see that. Like, I think Brandin Cummings is maybe one of those guys. I think he's maybe playing too big of a role for him to be the most efficient version of himself. So theoretically, you put him on a team with more talent, and maybe he's able to become a more consistent offensive presence. But like, I don't know, three of this team's four best players are, Damarco Minor, Cam Corhen, and Barry Dunning. None of whom I would expect have another year of eligibility left and can come back next year. And so I think that just leaves you in a really tricky place. Like, can Brandin Cummings be a piece next year? Sure. Can Amari Witherspoon be a piece next year? Can Noyes Indrisatis be a piece next year? Maybe. I'm less sure about that one. But there is just a very limited number of guys on this team that so far this season have shown that they can scale those roles up to become positive contributors to a winning team. And that's what we were looking for out of this season, if nothing else. And just very little of that has shown up, which I think doesn't lend itself to having much hope for next year. Like, even if there is an influx of talent, like you said, there are still coaching issues. There are kind of fundamental things about this basketball team that a top 10 recruiting class of three guys, I don't think you can count on that to fill the holes. And you just look at this tenure for Jeff Capel, and it's really getting late early. And I think it's just a matter now of like, how long can you hold on? Like, does Pitt have the patience necessary to see this season through and then sign up for another year? Because it just seems less and less likely by the day. And it'd be one thing if they kept losing to high major opponents, those, I don't want to call them forgivable, but they are at least understandable. This is a game that I think Pitt was, according to our friends at Fanduel, an 8.5-point favorite going into, which still not what you want it to be when you're playing Hofstra, but Pitt was supposed to win this game. You're just supposed to win these games. It's you don't even need to win them by 15 or whatever. Like, you just can't have a loss like this on your resume, and Pitt has two of them now.
And genuinely, to me, it comes down to development. I mean, when you talk about, Amari Witherspoon and Noyes Indrisatis, like, they're still making mistakes, and Roman Salepa too, put him on that list. They're still making mistakes that they were making in game one, and we're a month into the season. Like, you would at least think that there's some steady improvement. And sometimes I think you see moments, but it's not consistent improvements. And that goes to development, which has been one of Jeff Capel's biggest criticisms, or one of the biggest criticisms on Jeff Capel, I should say. I mean, because when you look at some of his best teams, they were teams full of guys that transferred in that he didn't develop. And that's the issue, is we're seeing this come back, that Jeff Capel can't seem to develop these guys. There's a reason Cam Corhen, Damarco Minor, and Barry Dunning Jr. are the best players on this team. And it's not because they were trained by Jeff Capel. They came in with this experience, and some of them multiple schools of experience that have made them to be the players that they are. And, maybe you can throw in the caveat that Brandin Cummings is getting better. I do think he is getting better. I think his issues with consistency this season comes from the fact that of his injury and coming back too early from that injury. But it's just like, it's hard to watch because, he's saying the same things in every single press conference. And at what point is it like fixable? Because these things that he's saying, not all of it is unfixable. Yeah, some of it is coaching, some of it is talent, but a defensive intensity and defensive schemes should not be falling through nearly as much as they are. And that's the part that's fixable to me. And that's the part that he's not developing, which is just leading to frustration on the court, frustration in terms of thinking ahead, because yeah, they have these grade 3 freshmen coming in next year, but what is he going to do with them?
Yeah, I think he has some development success stories. Like, part of that is evaluation. Like, he saw something in Blake Hinson that not a lot of other people saw. I could say even that about Jamarius Burton. Like, he allowed him to take on a bigger role, and Burton became like a first-team All-ACC player. There are a couple other handful of ones, like, Justin Champagny got a lot better when he was here. But to your point, these development success stories are, Bub Carrington, I could keep going, but with a couple more. But these success stories are fewer and further between than they need to be, especially for a school like Pitt, where, basketball is a fickle, kind of industry now, and the kind of recruiting landscape is tough because you are, even compared to football, like, dramatically less likely to be able to retain your players year to year. But Pitt needs these guys to stick around for a while, and they need to become like program guys and get better. Like, Pitt's not just landing, NBA talent like right off the bat. They're not even, I don't think they're the type of school where you can count on landing top transfers either. Like you have to hit on some diamonds in the rough, and Pitt took a couple swings here. It's obviously tough that they don't have Deshaun Jackson. Like to your point about the defense, like it'd be really nice to have him just as a defensive anchor, as a rebounder. It's pretty miserable to not have him, and he was such a big part of their plans, but he hasn't played a game for him. He's not there. So you can really only evaluate what you see on the court. And I understand Jeff Capel has been unlucky at a bunch of different moments during his tenure at Pitt, but at a certain point, you just got to wonder what's working here and what's worth hanging on to. And to me, it doesn't really seem like much at this point. So I guess the only question moving forward is how much patience does Allen Greene have with this? And if he's going to be patient with it, who is worth hanging on to from this team? Because it's not many guys that I would say, yep, I'm willing to go into next year, or that there are guys. I don't know how many guys there are on this team that you could bring into next year and say, I expect something different. I expect major improvements, because I don't know. I just haven't seen much this year that indicates they can do that.
No, we're in total agreement there. I think it's unfortunate the financial situation Pitt is in, still recovering, trying to get back to the victory heights, dealing with revenue sharing, because I think in a different era of college athletics, Jeff Capel is already gone. And that's not to say, I think he's a great guy, but he hasn't done enough in his tenure to warrant keeping him at this point. But they're kind of in a bind. And so, like you said, how patient are you? What are you doing behind the scenes to try and fix the situation? Because basketball and football pay the bills. And when your basketball team isn't even able to win against two very talented, but still two mid-major teams, there's an issue there. And you got to figure out a fix. And Jeff Capel isn't fixing the issue. So,
yeah, and to your point, like the last thing my last point about is that, like, I've seen that kind of sentiment expressed by Pitt fans as well. Like, people really wanted Jeff Capel to like work out here, and I guess maybe some are still holding on to hope that it will, but it's because that he has kind of represented the university well. Otherwise, he appears to be a good man who cares about his players and has recruited, for the most part, players who have been fun to root for and fun to follow and seem like nice people. So I think that is one of the biggest reasons why it is disappointing, is that people really were rooting for Capel to work out, and for a number of different reasons, it just has not come through for the Pitt Panthers, who have another interesting game coming up. They'll travel to face Villanova in a revival of some old Big East tensions this weekend in Philadelphia, or I guess not in Philadelphia, but just outside Philadelphia. But along with that, we're going to get ready for a bowl game, and we've got plenty more Pitt volleyball coming along the way as the tournament marches on. So make sure that you're liking this video, subscribe to the channel, PG Pitt on YouTube, so that you don't miss a thing, and follow all of our written work at post-gazette.com. Appreciate you all watching this video, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.